You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Every weeknight, it's Buzz After Dark.
You like that?
With Eric Steele.
Hang out with me Monday through Friday from 7 to midnight for the Buzz After Dark. It's kind of like the Titanic, except instead of 3 hours to sink, it takes 5 hours.
Freaks come out at night, that's for sure.
Welcome to the blessed night. Yeah!
The Buzz After Dark. After Dark.
All night long.
Awesome tunes, clothing optional.
Hope you enjoyed the ride.
Weeknight 7 to midnight on 102.9 The Buzz. Nashville's Rock Station.
Night Demon fans and friends, we are calling upon you to get Welcome to the Night added to rotation on 102.9 The Buzz. Text the Buzz hotline at area code 615-399-1029 to request Night Demon's Welcome to the Night. That's area code 615-399-1029. You know what to do.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host Nesbitt, and what can I say? 2020 in the can, over, done. A lot of people are probably going to be glad to see this one over with. I think a lot of bands would probably also like to forget about this year with the shows being canceled, but Night Demon is one band who kept very active in 2020. There's a lot going on with Night Demon over this past year. We're going to run through it all, plus some news on an upcoming full-length album. It's coming next year. Keep listening for more details. This is Night Demon's 2020 Year in Review. So Night Demon started 2020 with big plans. As usual, there was lots of touring on the books for Night Demon. And as you know, there were a bunch of singles released this year. And that was in the plans before 2020 even started. The timing of the pandemic actually fell right into place with these plans.
So the initial plan for 2020 with dropping these singles, we started working in 2019 with a lot of different producers. And I mean, the idea was that the songs we were writing weren't totally cohesive for an album. They were kind of schizophrenic in that way. And there's a lot of guys that we wanted to work with. And, you know, this day and age with limited budgets and stuff, getting a producer to, or an engineer or a studio to commit to making a record, it's just a big undertaking. It's months of these guys' lives. So when we just approached it of like, you know, hey, we're in Denmark, Flemming Rasmussen, you want to do a couple songs? We just need 2 or 3 days of your time. It's like, oh yeah, why not? You know, I could use the work and the band sounds cool. Same thing with Steve Albini, same thing with Matt Hyde. So that was really cool how that came together. The initial plan was to release the singles every 5 weeks. We were going to do a 7-inch. We were going to do 8. We ended up doing 5, 4 of them brand new original studio tracks, and then the In Trance live with Uli John Roth, which, I mean, still kind of pinching myself on that one. Just a milestone moment in our career and like a bucket list thing. So I'm really glad that we got to put that on wax. You know, when the pandemic hit, basically all the producers and engineers that we had slated to do the rest of the tunes had backed out because of, you know, coronavirus fear, which, you know, we're not going to hate on them for that, but it just kind of derailed everything. And then we kind of went back to the drawing board and started writing some stuff that was a little more cohesive. So the vision of a full-length album had changed a lot throughout the course of this year. But, everything does happen for a reason, and it's really cool the way that things are turning out. So we're excited to keep working on that stuff. Dropping the singles without warning was just a total... there's so many pre-orders these days, and I've seen pre-orders with 7 inches singles, and it's just crazy. People kind of pledge, the fans they put their money down 3-4 months ahead of time. And it's good for a record label to kind of gauge what they need to press. But with these singles, we're doing 500 to 1,000 copies a piece. And, we're confident that we have enough fans around the world that want to have this stuff. So the label backed our play on that.
I think I know initially from what Jarvis has told me, the label at first was a little hesitant to the idea that, they wanted us to, or that we were thinking about dropping singles. I think when it comes to a record label standpoint, they are so conditioned to having a full record from bands. And I think sometimes you get some songs on those records that might not be as good as the others because they have to scramble and get this whole record done. So for us, we wanted to kind of come out with a singles thing. It was something we've talked about over the years, and it worked out in our favor, and we really spent a lot of time on those 4 songs, 5 including the Uli John Roth, the Scorpions covers.
It's kind of, and again, going back to everything does happen for a reason. This plan was in place probably 16 months before we released Empire's Fall, the first single in April. So, here comes the pandemic, almost right on time with that, the lockdown at least. And it couldn't have been, it was a perfect storm for Night Demon, at least, for releasing these singles this way. You want to have an announcement a lot of times to kind of drum up some interest, but like I said, going back 16 months prior to that, we were already feeling the loss of attention span in this world with social media and just scrolling through news feeds all day, and kind of seeing that there were some great records that were coming out that were announced 3-4 months ahead of time and having these pre-orders. And, it's like by the time the record actually gets released and hits and is in the hands of the fans, it's kind of old news. It's just been talked about so much, and people kind of move on to the next. I've seen things where on a Friday, a song will come out, a band will release a single that everybody loves, and then by Monday, they're just not even talking about it anymore. So we just kind of wanted to flip that on its head and just say, hey, look, you're going to get stuff when you can get it. It's not like a big tease. It's like, hey, look, we have something available here. There's a video for it. There's a making of video for it. There's digital track for it. There's a physical vinyl that you can buy today when you hear the single, and you can have it in your hands by next week. And it has an exclusive B-side exclusive to the vinyl. So it was a big success, and those singles sold out either the day of or the following day, and we were totally blown away by that. To be honest, I thought we were going to be sitting on a bunch of records at the end of the year, but thankfully that wasn't the case. And, in life and in business and in your career, you just have to take some risks. And whether it's a calculated risk or not, you just have to dive in the deep end, and it worked out for us in the end.
The idea about the singles and all that, I've always really liked that idea because, these days everybody's so kind of like, the attention spans are so short, especially with the younger generations, that, everybody's putting singles out in pop music and stuff like that. That's what it is, kind of, it's like it's kind of gone back to like the 50s thing where nobody put albums out back then, Elvis and all those guys. It was singles. And then eventually somebody would compile them together and put it out as a long play vinyl. That's where the LP came from. It was long play. So it's kind of cool that it's gone back that way. And it's like, fuck, man, I'd rather get one song or two songs like every month from a band than like a whole album at once. And, you fucking burn it out and then, you burn it out for a few months and then that's it. Whereas this way, it's like there's always something new coming out. So we settled on the 5, which worked out pretty damn good. And then, you'll find out what we're going to do for the album here pretty soon.
So the plan of dropping monthly singles fell into place perfectly with what was going on this year. And it kept Night Demon out there even when touring was canceled.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. I don't think anybody would have predicted this. So it definitely put the brakes on some things for us. Mainly, obviously, the obvious thing is the touring. We definitely had some really cool shit lined up. Some touring in the States and in Europe with some really great bands. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen, but we're going to definitely pick that up again at some other later date.
So as a New Year's year in review special, I'm going to step through the year of 2020, month by month, starting with January of 2020. So January, Night Demon are pretty busy in the studio, in Armand's studio, which is named the Captain's Quarters. So in case listeners don't know, Armand has been recording, engineering, and producing for years. We're talking hundreds of albums going back many years. And in 2020, Armand was typically busy in the studio.
The Wisteria. Okay, yeah, I recorded the Wisteria and also all the cover songs that were on the B-sides were all recorded here by me at the Captain's Quarters. So I had to have, those things ready, obviously, in time. And of course, all the vocals were done here as well, which goes into January, talking about what we did in January. And basically, that was the first thing kind of we did. I had just wrapped up the Sirathungal album. We had just got back from the tour with Sacred Reich in the middle of December, kind of right before Christmas. And right after Christmas, I finished up all the mixes for what would become Forever Black, which was released later in 2020. And then as soon as that was done, it was time to get the vocals done for Kill the Pain.
So one of the singles that was released later on that year was Kill the Pain. And the meat of that track was recorded by Flemming Rasmussen at Sweet Silence Studios in Copenhagen, Denmark. We're going to get into an episode on that song very soon. But the vocals for that track, Kill the Pain, were recorded in January of 2020 at Armand's studio, the Captain's Quarters.
No warning, still craving to kill the pain. Oh, you're going insane now.
So yeah, we did the vocals, I think maybe in a night, probably. And then I went in and did some harmonies, as I do normally. And boom, we sent them off to Mr. Flemming Rasmussen, who we recorded that track with in Copenhagen right before we did the Sacred Reich tour.
So early January, the band's laying down vocals. In fact, having access to Armand's recording studio in 2020 turned out to be a huge asset to the band.
Having Armand's studio, the Captain's Quarters, literally, 2 doors down from our rehearsal space, it was a godsend. It's always been, you can go back to the first Night Demon EP. We recorded it there, and at the time, Night Demon was rehearsing literally next door to that studio. You can go back to Curse of the Damned, where we spent a few months there recording that record before we scrapped it and did it again at Bright Mountain. You can go back to Darkness Remains. All the vocals were recorded there. Some of the guitar solos were recorded there. We were doing a lot of the writing there. And in this case, you know, with a lot of these singles, a lot of the vocals were done here. And a lot of the extra stuff in the songs was done here. Like we were running out of time at these other studios, or, you know, I wasn't quite ready to do it when we were there. So we got the meat of the stuff done with the people we wanted to work with. And then we have access to this state-of-the-art studio. And Armand is a great producer and engineer, and he does so many records all the time. And so, you know, a lot of great bands come to him to get their records done. So it's a really great thing. I mean, you know, doing stuff ourselves has always kind of been the way. But I think the goal with going with other people is so Armand could just be a guitar player. He could be the guitar player of Night Demon. He doesn't also have to be the engineer and the guy behind the controls and mic placement and sounds and all this stuff. It kind of frees him up. So that was a cool experiment. But with that said, I mean, we still feel very comfortable doing stuff ourselves, and we still haven't really found that guy. You know, we haven't found our Rick Rubin or Bob Rock or, you know, the fourth member of Night Demon. That's the producer that we lean on or that captures the Night Demon sound. I think we capture it quite well ourselves. So moving forward, I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I think that, we're not looking as hard as we once were for that person. If they're not showing up naturally, it's kind of a waste of effort for us to go and hunt them down. What would be nice in the future is to have somebody that we trust and somebody that's competent enough to be kind of an assistant engineer, somebody that can do the legwork for Armand as far as, you know, hitting record on the tape machine, lining up the punches, setting up mics, you know, plugging in cables, that kind of stuff. I think that would be the biggest help to us. And so I think moving forward, that's probably the direction we're going to head in.
Yeah, I mean, Armand's really good at what he does. His studio thrives in Ventura. He's the guy that everybody goes to get really great sounds. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't bullshit. Armand does really well in his studio, and he stays busy for sure.
The whole thing about having the studio here, I mean, fuck, dude. That's a godsend. You know, I don't know what the hell I'd be doing if I didn't have the studio to keep me busy. You know, I ended up doing a lot of upgrades here, like, you know, just painting, cleaning, put some new flooring down, did a bunch of soldering, you know, built a bunch of cables and things that I've been wanting to do for a really long time that I just haven't had the time or the drive to do because it's like in between touring, you want to chill, whatever. But, you know, yeah, it really kept me busy and, you know, happy to be home, to be able to do that kind of stuff. So that's another little blessing in disguise with this whole fucking pandemic thing.
So that brings us to February of 2020. So Saturday, February 29th, Night Demon plays what turns out to be their only show in 2020.
Metal Blade Records presents the return of heavy metal legends Armored Saint with their 8th full-length album, Punching the Sky. A diverse, attitude-drenched collection, it's everything the band's faithful have come to expect from them while pushing their signature sound forward. Featuring 11 hard-hitting tracks available on double LP and Digipack CD. Right now, Metal Blade Records is giving all Night Demon Heavy Metal podcast listeners a 15% store-wide discount on all Metal Blade releases and merchandise, including this masterpiece from Armored Saint. Go to indiemerch.com/Metal Records and enter promo code NDPodcast at checkout. This store is loaded with tons of swag from some of the best bands in metal, like Midnight, Sirith Ungol, Merciful Fate, Angel Witch, Satan, and of course, the mighty Armored Saint. That's indiemerch.com/Metal Records, promo code ND Podcast. So march like a saint and take the last train home. Can you deliver?
So February of 2020, Night Demon plays their first and what turns out to be their last show in 2020. It's Sean's Big 50 at the Lost Well in Austin, Texas.
February was chill. It was the one and only show of 2020.
In February 2020, we played our only gig of the year. We were flown out to Austin, Texas by our good friend Sean Weingartner for his birthday party. We played at the Lost Well.
Sean Weingartner, it was his 50th birthday. Sorry, Sean, calling you out. Amazing, amazing friend, confidant, partner in metal, and just all around good dude. What better way to, honor and show our love and respect for him than to do basically a private show. Well, not necessarily private, but yeah, a show for him.
I'm Sean Weingartner from Austin, Texas. So February 27th was my 50th birthday. And prior to that, I was planning to have a big party and wanted to have some of my favorite bands play. So I talked to Jarvis and said, what's it going to take to have Night Demon play my party? And basically, he said, just get us there. So I was pretty excited about that. To have three guys that I'm really close friends with to come here from Ventura, California to play my birthday party was going to be pretty incredible. The night of the party ended up being a sold-out show at the Lost Well here in Austin, Texas. We did it on leap year, Saturday, February 29th, just because that was the most convenient date to have everybody in town. A couple of my best friends from back home were here, and so many of my local friends were here. Plus, a ton of people showed up from around the country just to see Night Demon, people that I didn't even know. It was a pretty incredible night, and really, I was just floored that these guys wanted to play my birthday party. It was pretty special for me. It was also the last show that I saw before all of the shutdowns hit through COVID. And I believe it was the only show that Night Demon played in 2020. So holding that part of history kind of sucks for the band because those guys are road dogs, and I know that they love being on the road, and they had a lot of plans to be on the road. I was supposed to see them with Satan for several dates on that tour with Haunt, and none of that happened. So for me, it's super special that the only show Night Demon played this year was my birthday. Probably not as special for those guys, but something that none of us are ever going to forget.
So that was his birthday request. So we flew out there, and we just did the thing, man. We partied it up. A couple of the guys, actually Maddie and Jameson from Visigoth, and him and Maddie from the band Bloodstar from Salt Lake City, they also came out as well, which I didn't know they were coming out. So that was a great surprise. I love those two. Great people. And just had a killer time. We played in a little bar. It was a hot, sweaty, drunken, great time, man. I think it took Sean about 2 days to recover from that night, as you would imagine what happens when you turn 50. I think we were there for like 3 or 4 days, had a great time. I brought my girlfriend with me. Jarvis brought his mom.
It was awesome. It was great. I even got to take my mom. I take my mom on a lot of one-off trips these days, places that she would want to go that she hasn't been to, or places that she hasn't been to in a long time. So that was her first time in Texas. So that was really cool, and that was really fun.
Hi, this is Lisa, Jarvis's mom. My Christmas present every year is a Mom Jarvie trip, which always includes a Night Demon, and sometimes Sirathungal, live performance. The destination is always a surprise and includes a lot of cool activities I probably would never do on my own, like kayaking 5 miles up a river in the dark to see the largest urban bat colony in Austin, Texas. Seriously, I would never do that. I always wanted to go to Texas, and last year that was my surprise. Jarvis said he was playing a birthday party for his friend Sean, so I thought it was going to be a small backyard affair. To my surprise, it was at a small but totally packed venue full of Sean's friends and a lot of Night Demon fans. The performance was the usual high energy Night Demon performance dedicated to Sean, a super cool guy. I could see how much fun Jarvis, Dusty, and Armand were having doing what they love and how much joy they brought to others. I'm so proud of all of them. Not everyone can live their dream. I can't wait to see where we go next.
That was a really, really fun gig. And that was right when the coronavirus was just starting to rear its ugly head. We didn't know that it was going to be as crazy as it turned out to be and as crazy as it is. And we didn't think it was going to derail our whole season. At the point that we went to go play the show and fly and everything, people weren't even wearing masks yet. You know, we were still able to gather at the bar and have a great time. And, you know, it was a little taste of normality's last breath for a while. But we had a really cool set up for that. Sean is a big Bryan Adams fan, so we did Summer of '69. He's also a big Paula Abdul fan, so the band that opened, I forget their name, and I'm sorry that I do. They covered Paula Abdul's Straight Up in their own way, because Sean loves Paula Abdul. That's like his numero uno, lady of all time. We covered God of Thunder by Kiss. I'm trying to think if we did any other covers that night. I'm not quite sure of what the set list was exactly, but it was really fun. We catered to Sean, and we wanted it to be a memorable 50th for him. And he had a couple of his close buddies come out, and you know, it was a really, really fun weekend, and something that I won't forget, and I'm sure he won't forget either. You know, we stayed at Sean's house, and we always have a good time there, and got to go around Austin still. And the city was pretty much a ghost town because the pandemic and everything, but it was still thriving at the same time. So it was great for us to be out there at that point in time. I'm glad we went out and did it.
Hey, Chris Kels here. I've been a fan and friend of the band since first catching them at the Ragnarocker Festival back in 2014. Done plenty of road trips since then for Night Demon action, most recently on Leap Year Weekend for a gig in Austin to celebrate the 50th birthday for Sean, one of my best buddies for probably 4 decades now. So me and Thomas, another of our old school pals, headed to Texas for what turned out to be the last Night Demon show of the year, although obviously we didn't know it at the time. It's a great way to go out, though. Definitely not a birthday party with your usual house band. I mean, it was a full-on Night Demon show, hot and sweaty and loud and fast, and everything you'd expect from a Night Demon gig. All the classic tunes in the set list, and some surprises, too. I mean, super cool to hear The Sun Goes Down before it became a B-side track, and seriously, pulling out stuff like The Summer of '69, it's just awesome. The band is obviously not a stranger to Texas, so the club was packed out with folks for the birthday party, but there are plenty of folks there who just wanted to catch a killer metal show, so everybody wins. I think one of the cool things about Night Demon shows is they tend to become these gathering spots for fans and friends. And on that night in particular, it was Sean and Thomas and me, along with Don. We'd all grown up together in Virginia. And this is probably the first time we've been in the same place for 25 years at least. I mean, it's pretty cool. And honestly, if it's only February and you're going to close the books on live shows for the rest of the year, going out with a bunch of friends and a ferocious Night Demon set, it's a pretty good way to roll.
There were a lot of people that came from out of town and flew in for the gig, which I thought was really cool. You know, I always love to see that happen. When we get flown into a place as a special guest to perform, and then other fans come from miles away to come and be a part of that, it just makes it kind of, you know, I don't want to say a global event, but it just makes it a lot more special than just like a one-off tour date on a Tuesday night when you come to somebody's town and, you know, you hope that they show up and bring all their friends. But it was a really great gig. We did some really awesome covers and stuff for Sean, and the set list was vast and kind of covered all the bases. It was just, I don't want to say it was a total relaxed gig. The fun spirit was there, but I mean, we definitely brought the real Night Demon show.
So it sounds like a pretty fun show. As far as the set list, there's actually a bunch of cool covers in there. Here's a rundown of the set list. Ritual, Full Speed Ahead, Turn Up the Night, which is a Black Sabbath cover, Mastermind, Life on the Run, Howling Man, In Trance, The Scorpions, Stranger in the Room, Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams. I would have loved to hear that. Heavy Metal Heat, Overkill from Motorhead, Dawn Rider, God of Thunder by Kiss, The Chalice, Screams in the Night, and then The Sun Goes Down and Black Rose, 2 Thin Lizzy covers in a row, and finishing off with Night Demon. So only one show in 2020, but man, what a cool, fun set list.
Hey there, this is Petey McGee from Richmond, Virginia. This is Night Demon kicking some serious ass in February 2020 at the Lost Well in Austin, Texas for Sean Weingartner's 50th birthday bash. Hell yeah.
So Night Demon plays their first and, unbeknownst to them at the time, their last show of 2020. And other than that one show, Night Demon, they did some work in the studio for some B-sides for upcoming singles, but that brings us to March of 2020. So, March of 2020, the month that COVID dropped on the world. And the way I remember it, it kind of happened really fast. It was this news story in China that people weren't paying that much attention to, and then it seemed like within a week it had spread and shut down everything all over the planet.
Yeah, the bomb drops in March. Yeah, I don't know. Initially, I thought it was just going to be a thing, you know, like every 5 or 6 years, there's some kind of thing, swine flu, the bird flu, you know, one of those things like, oh, fuck, everybody's going to die, you know, one of those things, you know. But as we can see, it's turned into something a lot bigger than that, more than I think anybody would have expected. And it's still fucking here. I've never experienced anything like this. I don't think any of us have, you know, as far as everything getting just canceled, you know. I mean, we were planning on, I think we were going to take off in April to start this tour in the States. And I mean, we were like up to the final week before the show. It was like, are we going? Things started shutting down. Things started getting canceled. You know, we were talking to promoters, and little by little, you know, they were starting to cancel things. And then it just got to the realization that, fuck, this is not going to happen, you know? So we started basically putting stuff off, postponing things, and here we are at the end of the year, and we haven't been able to do anything yet. So it's really crazy, man. A real trip.
So no live music. As a fan, this really sucked. I had a few big plans for some trips to see some shows this past year, and they obviously never happened. But for a band who makes a living touring, I mean, it's more than just disappointment. Big tours and big plans kind of fell by the wayside for Night Demon.
We had a lot of stuff canceled this year. We had a full U.S. tour that was happening in April with Satan, Haunt, and Bewitcher. We had a European run happening with Midnight and Exciter that was going to be awesome. We had festivals like Bang Your Head, Rock Hard, Rock the Night in Madrid. We were going to go to Puerto Rico for the first time in June. That obviously got pulled. We were going to do a U.S. tour with Exhumer in October. So many things. And those things just keep getting pushed back. Some are being canceled. But, I mean, just to put everyone at ease, we always have things booked, and we're booking into the future. We're booking into 2022 now. We have stuff on the table for summer 2021, if that's able to happen. If not, we have stuff in the fall. We have stuff in November, October, December. I mean, I know those months were not in order, but but we have stuff all the way through the back half of the year. That's a full schedule. And we're already looking to 2022 now as well. So when shows do come back, we will be on the road.
I really didn't think it was going to be as big of a deal as it turned out to be, and as big of a deal as it is. I didn't think it was going to derail our entire year as far as shows go. You know, ever since I joined the band in 2013, it's been nothing but crazy amount of shows and just nonstop action. So to have a full year off like this, just about, really, really crazy. I did not expect it to turn out the way that it did. And I know that I could speak for probably everybody in the world when I say that.
Initially, when the COVID thing hit, and some airline travel started to be canceled and some borders were closing down, you know, it was the Sirathungal guys at first that were kind of like, hey, what's going on here? You know, and kind of looking to me as the manager, like, what do you know about this? What's happening? Are things still in line? Or, you know, the other concern is like, hey, do we want to do these things? You know, with their age and stuff, I think they were a little concerned. So initially, you know, I just kind of passed it off and just thought, oh man, come on. What are we talking about here? Like a global pandemic? Like this is going to get under control. It's not happening. You know, we've been through SARS or the bird flu, you know, H1N1, you know, anthrax scares, Ebola, you know, all this stuff that we've always kind of heard about that were kind of like more deadly diseases than this. And it never affected the world the way that this thing did. And I honestly just passed it off and said, yeah, I'm not concerned about it. Let's just, it's media driven and let's just keep going with it. But eventually, as we all know, you know, things happen that were completely out of our control. And, you know, you just got to roll with the punches at that point. So when the first lockdown happened, you know, as far as Night Team was concerned, you know, we had spent so much time around each other from the years leading up to this that we didn't feel that we had to distance ourselves. We weren't putting each other at risk because we were just around each other, you know. So it's kind of like a family. Like you know, during this lockdown, everybody stays with their close relatives and family, and that's how the band is. So we kept going, and you know, we're isolated out here in a field in the middle of Ventura where we live, and we're not in a highly populated area. So it was safe for us to continue jamming. And I got to say, that's really what got us through most of this year. The ability for us to get together and be creative and write and play in our brand new studio that we built, our brand new rehearsal place. It was really nice. And it was, you know, we were forced to take a break from the road. And I think we were getting a little burnt out anyway. And, you know, maybe the fans needed a break from us for a bit. So, you know, I'm pretty optimistic about it, and I'm pretty positive in my outlook on the whole thing. Back to, again, everything does happen for a reason, and you just got to roll with the punches. So when unforeseen things happen in life that are out of your control, you just got to kind of find the bright side in it. And if you look hard enough, you always will.
I mean, it kind of it put the brakes on for us a little bit, and it put the brakes on for a lot of things in the industry. You know, I kind of look at it as something like a reset. You know, we've been touring a lot, you know, over the past few years, and I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise, because I think that when things do get back on track, people are going to be so fucking pumped and ready to rock and just like so hungry for live music that the bands that can survive this time off and this, you know, cancellation of life are going to come out of the ashes fucking like on top of the world, you know. And you better believe that we'll be there right at the front of the fucking train, you know, running full speed ahead. See how I did that?
And I don't know when we're going to be able to play shows again. I know we have a couple dates, Bang Your Head in July, I believe, and then a Mexico date in September. All we can do is are things in our power and our control, and that's this podcast, and that's writing new music, and that's coming up with future battle plans, and always being prepared for the next step, which we are doing. So I'm confident that we'll be able to get back into the swing of things pretty easily, just because of our preparation.
So even with lockdowns and cancellations, the Night Demon machine doesn't stop working. You're about to see as we run through the rest of the year that even with no live shows, Night Demon just keeps rolling along. One thing that happened in March that you might have heard on this podcast's Halloween special is the Night Demon line of horror merch. That came out in March, a set of 3 shirts, all themed after classic 80s horror movies.
The whole idea of dropping the horror merch line was a cool thing, you know, keeps everything going again. And, you know, we just had to really think about ways to keep the band going. We knew that when things started to get canceled and shut down, that we had to be on top of our game.
Cool idea. I love the Ghoulies shirt is my favorite of the bunch. At first, I thought it was a little excessive, but it was pretty funny. And I love that movie and those little green guys, especially the toilet guy. So mixing that with the metal up your ass shirt is a fucking genius move.
Also in March, Night Demon again staying busy in the studio. So early March, they record vocals for The Sun Goes Down and Are You Out There at the Captain's Quarters.
Your rock has lost its role. The next gig is your funeral. You've gotten out of control. You won't live again. Oh no, Johnny, come home. From the dark, back streets you roam.
In mid-March, the band gets together with Josh Newell, and they record some music for what would be a song on the upcoming album, which we'll talk about a bit more in a little while. So they're making a lot of progress on new material, and then some very scary health issues pop up and put a halt to it.
We also had Josh Newell, come in and record this sort of, well, I'd have to say it's sort of a concept thing. I don't know how much we want to put out there, but we did a couple of tracks. He had come out, you know, the COVID thing was still kind of new. Things were starting to shut down. So we got to the point where we were working over that whole weekend and we recorded some stuff that's going to be for the new record. And, you know, we got to the point on Sunday where I had recorded my guitar tracks, Dustin had gotten the drum tracks, and then usually we would throw down, you know, go over the bass and do bass tracks after the guitars are down, rhythm guitars at least. But that Sunday night, you know, Jarvis wasn't really around that day, and, you know, it turns out he was like kind of suffering. He was in pain. I don't know. Nobody really knew what was up, and you know, I was like, are you going to record tonight? He's like, man, I just don't feel good. I don't know what's going on. You know, we're going to have to reschedule this shit, you know.
You know, we're working on new music, and we had to finish up the songs that we had coming out. So, you know, we're always doing something, and we recorded I'm going to call it a demo with our buddy Josh Newell, and that night, Jarvis wasn't feeling well, and he was kind of, you know, wincing in pain and writhing a bit, and we were just like, what's going on with him? And we're like, no way, does this guy have COVID? You know, like, holy shit, is this really happening? And some close friends of ours that or a close friend of ours that saw him that night was like, hey, he's like not doing good. I had to convince him to go to the hospital. And we're like, holy shit, this isn't good. And Jarvis thought he was going to die.
I just started getting these crazy pains in like my right rib, and it just became extremely unbearable. I couldn't sit down, I couldn't lay down, and I was wincing in pain constantly, and I was just trying to figure out what it was. I tried to sleep that night, and I just couldn't, and I ended up having to go to the emergency room, which, you know, I've only done before when I've gotten into fights or something where I needed stitches or stab wounds or just, you know, crazy things when I was a kid. But that's, you know, this was something else was going on here. And I was just coughing up all this black stuff. It was really crazy. Just this heavy black soot and like, a taste in my mouth. It was just insane, taste of blood and all this stuff. And so I was really concerned. So I went to the emergency room, and the lockdown this was like right at the beginning of this stuff.
Jarvis went to the hospital. He went to the ER or something like that. And, you know, as those things normally go, it was kind of this back and forth. It took him a while to like figure out what was going on with him. He decided, no, I don't want to deal with this. I'll just sleep it off. I'll be okay. And I saw him when he got back that night. You know, I caught him at the door before he went over to the studio next door. And, you know, I saw the way he was walking towards the door. He was kind of like clutching his side. And I was like, man, you know, what are you doing? You got to go to the hospital, dude. You can't be like this. You know, there's no one here for you in case something happens. I don't know what the hell was going on with him. He's like, no, man, I'm all right. I'm just going to try to get some sleep. And then it turns out later that night at, 12 or 1 in the morning, he ended up driving himself back to the hospital because he just couldn't take the pain anymore. So it's crazy. He went in and they put him in the ICU and quarantined his ass. And this is the beginning of the COVID thing. So, of course, we're all thinking, fuck, this thing's real, man. He's got it, And then I remember at some point, I don't know if it was that same night or the night after, he sent us these like really kind of morbid text messages saying like, hey guys, like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. Can you take care of this for me? He had asked me to bring him some stuff, his backpack or something that he had over next door and drop it off at the hospital. They wouldn't let anybody see him. You had to go into like some crazy quarantine thing, put on a full bodysuit.
He was in bad shape. We couldn't even go see him because COVID was happening and everything was all quarantined off in the hospitals and everybody was taking major precautions. And, he really thought he was going to die. And I was just like, holy shit, like, this is crazy. You don't expect it to happen to your buds. And
I was like, no, man, you're going to get through this. Come on, He was like, but he didn't know, and I think the doctors and shit were telling him, they didn't know what the fuck was going on. They were just poking and prodding at him. They had every specialist for whatever coming down to check him out. And some of them told him, you better get ready to, say goodbye and all this kind of shit. And so I can only imagine what was going through his mind.
So I ended up being in there for 5 days with a bacterial lung infection. Don't know how I got it. They don't know how I got it. But, I was poked and prodded and, tested for all 4 strains of COVID, tested negative for it. I was tested for about 60 other viral things. They really thought I had tuberculosis and they were waiting for lab results to come back. I was getting my blood taken every hour and a half, every 2 hours for 5 days. I mean, it was pretty insane. I remember the first couple nights I couldn't even lay down in the hospital bed. So I was hooked up to all these IVs on this, this stand that looks like a coat rack with wheels. And I would just have to stand in the corner when I got extremely tired. And I'd have to kind of prop myself up with my arms in the corner where I would like just imagine the corner of a room, my fingertips would meet. I put my hand on each side of the wall, and then my forearms would rest flat on the wall, and I put my forehead on the back end of my fingers. And it just sucked because, you know, every time I fall into a deep sleep, of course I would fall down to the floor and then shit would rip out of my arm. It was just a terrible thing, you know. And because of the COVID thing, they weren't allowing me any visitors. Armand came by a couple times and dropped off some things, you know. My Bob Daisley book that I really wanted to read, you know, my backpack with all my stuff. And I had, it's funny, I had like a couple label meetings in there, some Zoom meetings. I tried to do some work as I was healing up. But, you know, eventually I just had to get out of there. The hospital is a place lately where, you know, people go to die. And I saw over a dozen doctors and nobody knew what was going on. There was no consistency there. The food was god awful. I mean, that's what'll kill you, that food. It's crazy that they give people that stuff, you know, and then try and pump them full of drugs. It doesn't really make much sense to me, but I learned a lot about being in the hospital. And like, unless it's a life or death situation, I would try and avoid that as much as you can. But staying healthy is a way to avoid that. So watching your intake of, you know, the bad stuff in life and also putting in, you know, good nutrients into your body will help you avoid that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was scary, man. It was really scary. But luckily I got a big room all to myself, and it was in a brand new hospital. I was on the top floor. It was like the penthouse suite. I had an ocean view. So it's crazy. But, you know, being confined to a room and not being allowed to leave for 5 days and being in that kind of pain is just, it's a sketchy thing, you know? But at a certain point I had to get out of there. I don't know how long I would have been in there if I didn't take any action, because they were just adamant that I needed to stay. And I just kind of knew I was healing up and they weren't getting any better on the answers. The bills were piling up. And I was just like, man, if I keep eating this food, there's no way I'm ever going to leave this place. So I just kind of had to force my will and get the fuck out of there. And I've been better for it since.
I think it was definitely a wake-up call for Jarvis as far as how he's lived his life in the past. I know he is really focused on living his best life, and I'm really proud of him for doing that. You know, he's not smoking cigarettes anymore, and he used to smoke a lot of cigarettes. They used to call him Nicocell because he was always constantly had a nicotine stick, and he was always on the cell phone. So that stuck with him forever, even into the Night Demon days, because he's always wheeling and dealing, and he's always got his hands in the pot. So for him to not be a smoker anymore is a big change, but a necessary step in the right direction for his health. And he's not drinking alcohol anymore. At least I think he'll have a couple drinks here and there, but it's not like a binge drinking type of thing like he used to do. You know, with him, it's all or nothing in all aspects of his life, including, you know, extracurricular activities. So I know that he's in a better place, and I know that he appreciates life a little more than he probably has in the past. So, yeah, I'm glad he's still around, and I'm glad we can continue to keep this project going. And I know it was a scary thing for him, and, you know, he pulled through.
Hey guys, Jarvis jumping in here. I want to tell you about Shadow Kingdom Records. Shadow Kingdom was the first domestic label to release Night Demon on CD. They put out the EP in 2013, and they also released the vinyl version of Live Darkness. Listen, you guys need to get your ass to the Shadow Kingdom Records store, okay? Right now, they're offering 10% off for all Night Demon Heavy Metal podcast listeners. Just go to the website, put in the code NIGHTDEMON10. That's Night Demon 10, all capital letters, Night Demon 10. No spaces. Put that promo code in upon checkout to get 10% off. Right now, guys, they have the Bloodstar 7-inch, which has sold over 1,500 copies, and these guys cannot hold on to it. So this next pressing, you want to get that before it goes out, okay? Also, SKR Compilation Volume 1. Guys, this is free on Bandcamp. They're giving it away for free. So not only are you going to go to shadowkingdomrecords.com and put in the code, all capital letters, no spaces, Night Demon 10 upon checkout, you're also going to go to their Bandcamp site and get this compilation for free. You're going to hear tons of fantastic fucking heavy metal. If you love us, you're going to love this label. Check it out, shadowkingdomrecords.com. Put in the promo code NIGHTDEMON10 and receive 10% off of your entire order. Do it.
So also planned for 2020 was a Night Demon beer. The Darkness Remains 6.5% black IPA. It's also known as a Cascadian Dark Ale. And I think a black IPA is a totally fitting style for a band like Night Demon. It is actually in production, but the plans for releasing it didn't quite go as planned.
The Darkness Remains black IPA from Goldhorn Brewing in Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, Night Demon has a beer. We had heard from some fans, I think in 2019. Yeah, in 2019. Hey, man, I'm drinking your beer. I love it. And we're like, what? What are you talking about? So apparently Goldhorn Brewing, they ended up making the Darkness Remains black IPA, a 7.2% alcohol heavy IPA, and they had it on draft at their brewery. And, you know, they did it as a tribute to the band, but we had no idea. So I ended up just getting a hold of these guys immediately and being like, hey, what's going on here?
We had to contact them and let them know. And then instead of pulling the plug on the entire thing, it's like, hey, let's go and work on this together.
And they were like, oh, you know, like, we don't mean any harm by it. We just love the band. And I said, well, okay, that's awesome. But, you know, we would like to be consulted by somebody if our name is going to be put on something. So, but they were super cool guys. Joel down there is an amazing guy, and they have a lot of heavy metal themed beers. So I ended up making a trip out there in January this year and checking out the operation, you know. Actually, I was, you know, like newly sober at the time. And so I actually didn't even try the beer, which is kind of, I know, sounds crazy, but everybody I went with did and said it was great. But I checked out the whole operation, saw how they made it, and we started to collaborate. And then in April, we were scheduled to play the Decibel Metal and Beer Festival in Philadelphia. And we were going to launch the beer. They're going to can the beer and give out samples of the beer there and offer it for sale. And so we had a really, really cool launch scheduled for that. A lot of legwork too, you know, selling alcohol out of state is a really difficult thing to do. There's a lot of licensing involved. When you talk about the state of Ohio, the state actually is the distributor for alcohol. It's kind of a fucked up thing, but that's basically how it goes. In that state, the alcohol manufacturers have to sell their product to the state, then the retailers buy it from the state, and then the state distributes it. It's a kind of corrupt system, but that's how the state controls it, and that's how they make their money. So when talking about doing it in the state of Pennsylvania, they have their own laws. So there was a lot of red tape. But Albert from Decibel and Joel from Goldhorn really did a lot to make that happen. So the fact that it didn't go down really sucked, and we've kind of delayed operations on that until next year. But we will can the beer. We got it dropped to 6.5% alcohol, which is, you could stomach a little more, but I really think we need to bring it up to 6.66%. And after witnessing their operation there firsthand, I know that they do have the ability to be that precise on the alcohol percentage. So that's the goal moving forward. So let's hope that that everything goes well with this COVID thing so we can get people drinking again.
So living in Canada, I know all about stupid government liquor laws and red tape. When I had my maiden podcast, we had a few listeners around the world that sent us beers from Australia, from Europe. A few showed up. Most of them just disappeared. They never arrived. I guess customs or some government agency got their hands on them. I'm still hoping to get my hands on some of this Night Demon beer when it gets canned. Or maybe I should just plan a trip to Cleveland. I'm a big Browns fan, dying to see the Browns play in First Energy Stadium. I've been wanting to do that for years now, so maybe catch a Browns game, drink some Night Demon beer. It has potential to be an awesome trip once travel opens up again. There's pictures of the label for this beer in the subscriber area. The beer didn't get canned, but the design was done and ready to go. It's pretty cool looking. You should check it out. So we're still in March of 2020. And if you were on social media in March, you may have seen some posts about Dusty and his drum making.
My drum making. I finished a drum kit in March for the Night Demon kit here in the States. I built a drum set that I shipped over to Europe last year, and it lives there. And then I built an identical one with a couple more toms for the U.S. kit because we were planning on going out with Exciter and Midnight, and I know Exciter wants a couple more toms just because Dan plays with more drums. But I know that he'll roll with whatever, but I made a couple extra drums. So a little backstory on my drum making. A friend of mine, Andrew Jenkins, who started this company called Thump Drums back in 2011, he'd been doing it years prior to that, but when him and I met in 2010, he's like, yeah, I make drums. And I'm like, all right, dude, whatever, you make drums, cool. But he used to work for Patagonia, and he shaped surfboards for them. And being a drummer that he is, he would tap on the surfboards and kind of realize that Patagonia had a different tone than other surfboards on the market. And he thought of, whoa, I could probably make some really cool sounding drums out of this material. So he worked with a guy from New York, a friend of his, and also asked around with people in the fiberglass industry, stuff like that, how he could come up with a mold to be able to wrap these drums around. And then we made a drum kit in 2011 for Thomas Pridgeon, who's a pretty big independent drummer. And Andrew asked me if I wanted to help him do that. And I had read about Thomas and Modern Drummer a bunch, and I knew who he was. And Andrew taught me how to do it. And, so it's been 9 years since I started making drums with him. And when I became a drum maker, it really took my drum knowledge to a whole nother level as far as tuning, the life of the shell, assembly, attention to detail, and the drums sound amazing. I really don't care to play any other drums because I know what my drums can do. I know that they can stand the beating that I give them. Durability is always a major factor in drums that I play, especially when we go out and I have to use backline drums. We covered it in the Vakken episode I break shit and I hit hard every single hit. It's just the intensity I play with. So I know that these drums will withstand the beating because I built them. I know their tendencies. I know every square inch of those drums by heart and by the back of my hand because I built them with my hands. And, I can't thank Andrew enough for teaching me how to do it because it just took my knowledge of drums and my abilities with the drums to a whole nother level. And, I drum tech for Robert Garvin from Surthungal, and my knowledge of drum building and all that is what allows me to be able to kind of be somewhat of a drum tech for him. I'm really, really fussy about tuning, and I'm really fussy about cleaning my drums. I'm really fussy about the whole thing. I just love the drums. So anything that I can do to be a part of it, I'm all about it. So drum making for me is like a form of meditation. It really puts me into what I call like a Zen kind of mindset. And when I'm building the drums, it's like my Zen den, you know? So I'm taking a little break from California right now, and I'm in Pennsylvania, so I'm not making any drums right now, but I did build 2 drum sets for Night Demon. I started them last August, so it's been just a year and some change that I've had those drums going. So I did the full Sacred Reich tour on my kit in Europe that I built. I disassembled it and put them in some FedEx boxes and then reassembled it when we got to Germany. So that's an advantage of it. Yeah, finally have my own drums that I can go out and play with all my sizes that I want and everything. So it's really, really cool.
So that brings us to April of 2020. And in April, out of the blue, with no warning, Night Demon drops the first single of the year, Empire's Fall.
Empire's Fall was a song that we had been kicking around for a long time. I'm glad that this one came out first. It was kind of like it's very Night Demon-esque, but it's a short and sweet song. It's got a great hook, and it was a great way to kick off the singles campaign. It was I guess it was kind of a safe road for us to take, but I love the speed and intensity of the song, and I mean, it's still one of my favorite songs of the new batch, and I'm really looking forward to playing that one live.
Empire's Fall kicked it off, gave everybody a little something to, kind of sink their teeth into. We had the cover of the Griff's Fast Bikes on the back end, on the B-side, and it came out great. It was a really fun song to record. It was a fun song to get the wheels turning as far as new music goes for our band. And, the music industry with the singles and the album releases, I think singles are the way to go because people's attention span is pretty short.
Yeah, the whole idea of dropping the singles without warning, that was Jarvis's idea. I wasn't sure, what, if that was a good idea or not. I wasn't quite totally convinced on it, But he had his reasons, and when he explained the reasons, and they made sense, and if the label went with it, then that must have meant that they also thought it was a good idea too. So, and it seemed to work because it's like, boom, you throw them down, people find out about it, and pretty much every single one that we released sold out within the day, that day or, right after the next morning or something like that. So ended up working out pretty good.
And we knew that if we didn't do any promotion as far as the singles go, our fans are so dedicated that they would know these singles are coming out and that they would be out there to buy them. So it really worked out nicely. And obviously the singles sold within hours, sold out within hours. So it worked out really nicely, and I think the label was pleasantly surprised, especially, the whole COVID thing hitting. It really gave us an opportunity to stay relevant during it. Every 5 weeks you're getting a new song instead of, I love the new Warbringer and Havoc records, but they were released as full albums during the pandemic or during COVID and the pandemic, and it kind of becomes old news at a certain point because everybody's already heard it and they it's kind of like you get tossed to the wayside at some point because it just becomes old. Whereas the singles keep coming out every 5 weeks, and it kind of keeps your momentum going and it keeps it fresh and relevant, especially during this kind of weird time. So
Empire's Fall in general, again, that was one of the first things we started working on. It'd been kind of kicking around for a while since like 2018. We initially wrote the beginnings of that song here. Shit, I don't know. There's so many demos of that song. It's crazy. We probably have the most versions of that song and idea than any of the new songs that are out there.
So there's a full episode on that track coming this year, and that's one I can't wait to get into. I love that song. Also, at the same time as the track coming out digitally and as a 7-inch, a lyric video for Empire's Fall is released.
We released lyric videos for all of the singles this year for the original tracks. And mainly the reason for that is lyric videos have not had a lot of traction traditionally. So it wasn't an idea that, oh, we're going to put out these lyric videos and they're going to go viral and everybody's going to see them. No. What I like about lyric videos is a lot of times people will hear a song for the first time and they'll see the lyric video. And I think that when you read the words while you're listening to it, you can understand the song on the first listen. And so I think it's a really good way when you're putting out new music to do something like that. If you're going to make a lyric video for a song you've heard 1,000 times, it doesn't make too much sense. But with the whole streaming thing and the whole YouTube thing and the way that the industry is going these days, the idea of buying an LP or a CD or a cassette and going home and listening to it and laying down on your bed and reading through the liner notes and the lyrics as you're listening to the record, those days are gone. But they're not gone, but it's a dying thing for sure. And it rarely happens that way. And I feel like when you can understand the words and read the lyrics, you have more of an opportunity to connect with a piece of music. So that was the goal for that, and I'm happy that we did that. Also, making full production music videos was not something that we wanted to do for this. We had a different idea for everything as a whole, and budget-wise, it works out a lot better to do that.
In addition to the lyric video, Night Demon also releases Empire's Fall behind the song making of video. Also in April, the vocals for Wisteria are recorded. April 8th, Empire's Fall makes Revolver Magazine's 5 best new songs right now. Here's a quote from that article. It says, Empire's Fall is an old school 80s style heavy metal at its bullet belted mullet banging best. It's more than a little punk rock too. The shredded voices of Rancid's Lars Fredriksson and Matt Freeman can be heard ringing out among the infectious gang vocals. Some pretty cool praise from Revolver Magazine. Also, April 28th, Guitar World premieres Armand's playthrough video of Empire's Fall.
Yeah, doing the Guitar World thing for Empire's Fall, I mean, that was pretty fucking rad. We had just wrapped up making the video for Wisteria. And since we had the guys here with the film crew, we decided to take advantage of that and shoot these little kind of things that ended up, mine ended up going on the Guitar World website, which is like a fucking, again, I mean, that month, talk about some monumental things for me. That Sirathungal album dropping, and then, Guitar World. I'm not in the magazine, but magazines aren't really that big of a deal anymore these days. But fucking hell, dude. I mean, that's one of the things that I read, religiously growing up and learning to play guitar, Guitar World. I learned so fucking much from that magazine. And to have a video of me playing guitar to one of our songs, it was just one of those like, hey mom, look at, I made it, one of those experiences, one of those moments in life. So pretty proud of that. Thanks for everybody that made that happen.
Also that month, Ventura's Cirith Ungol releases Forever Black, which Armand and Jarvis both have a big hand in.
The Cirith Ungol Forever Black album that came out in April was basically the comeback record of the band. It was the first studio album that they've done in 29 years. Obviously I played on it because I play bass in the band, but my main job in the band is the manager of the band. I helped reform the band back in 2016. And, again, I think we'll go deeper into the Ungol world when we cover them on a future episode. But, it was really good having that come out. The sour note was that the band was supposed to headline 2 nights at Keep It True in Germany. And it was already sold out. And no band has ever headlined both nights at that festival. We had 2 different set lists going. We were going to play the full record from front to back. It's a very heavy record. It's a great comeback record for the band. And, Armand was at the controls for that one. So it was great. It was another family affair. I'm really happy with the way it came out. And, being here in the back half of December of 2020, all of the best of reviews are coming out. And they're like on almost everybody's list, whether it's a top 10 list, top 20, top 50. They've even taken number 1 on a lot of lists. So I'm really proud of that. My involvement in the songwriting, I tried to keep to a minimum. I'm kind of the editor and the final say on stuff, but I really wanted it to sound like Cirith Ungol, and I didn't want to put too much of my influence in the writing until it came to the end, just tying loose ends together.
So Cirith Ungol Forever Black makes Consequence of Sound top 20 metal albums of 2020, Decibel's top 40 albums of 2020, Invisible Orange's #1 album of 2020. And here's a quote: "The album feels like a mixture of the best qualities of their 4 legendary previous records, purified in a production alchemy worthy of elder gods that makes it feel as timeless now as if it had been released in 1986.
Oh, yeah. Forever Black by Cirith Ungol dropped this month. Yeah. That's a pretty big moment for me. I recorded and mixed that record by our great friends and confidants, Cirith Ungol, the mighty, legendary Ventura band. So this is their first new release since like 91 or something like that, 91, 92, almost 20 years, 30 years, I'm sorry. And yeah, it was a fucking amazing to be involved in that, and like a historic thing for me. So I'm really proud of that. Really cool. We had done like a single to start with the previous year, just to kind of test the waters and see how people would react. It's called Witch's Game. And then, it obviously went over really well. So the guys were just like super pumped. They spent that whole summer writing for what would become Forever Black. While we were on tour with Sacred Reich, I was kind of working on, mixes and getting the tracks ready and stuff while we were on the bus with those guys whenever I could. And then as soon as we got home, I spent like the last week of December after Christmas mixing everything and getting it all ready. So yeah, one of my proud moments in my career as a recording engineer / producer, whatever you want to call it.
So Night Demon and Cirith Ungol actually have a long history together, and that's another episode to stay tuned for this year. Also featuring Cirith Ungol and Night Demon, and released in April of 2020, was the Night Demon 10-song post-apocalyptic isolation playlist.
The 10-song post-apocalyptic isolation playlist. That's something that I put together. I think I may have asked the other guys. I can't remember. But we just kind of wanted to keep something out there. And I thought Empire's Fall was a really good song for it. But it was nice to put together a playlist of other songs. And so that's just kind of, just a thing, just a fan engagement thing, or just something to, it's like, hey guys, here's what we would listen to in a time like this. Just something, just a quick thing for somebody to just kind of, listen to some metal and feel good or feel better about what's going on around them. And ironically enough, we got on the Megadeth had an isolation playlist that came out shortly after that, and they put Night Demon on it and Cirith Ungol. So that was actually pretty cool. I don't want to say we spurred that idea, but I'm sure lots of other people did it. But I hadn't known anybody or any other bands to do it at the time. So it was just another thing. I get these ideas in my head, and it's just like, just go for it. You just got to take action right away.
So if you're looking for something to listen to on Spotify, look it up. It's on Night Demon's social media. There's links in there. The Night Demon 10-song post-apocalyptic isolation playlist. Also rounding out April, Metal Blades Records podcast, episode 68 with Jarvis Leatherby. So Jarvis was a guest on that podcast. It's a cool interview if you want to check it out. And that brings us to May of 2020. And the second Night Demon single drops out of the blue, and like the lyrics say, no warning.
6 feet above, it's better below. Escaping the long way home. No warning, still craving to kill the man. Oh, you're going insane now.
Kill the Pain. I mean, that song has had more streaming plays, I guess, this year than any of the singles. That's the one that caught on the most. I love the song. Again, we'll do a deep dive into this later, but just some general comments on it. That was when we dropped the second single, Without Warning. So it was kind of like, oh, I think a lot of fans were waiting after Empire's Fall to go, okay, this has to be on a full-length album? When's the announcement for the full-length coming out? What else is going to be on this? And then we just drop another single, and it's kind of like just dropped it out of the sky, and people really love the song, and it's like, okay, this is awesome. Now we're going to hear about the record, and these 2 songs are on it, and then no, just radio silence for the next 5 weeks.
Kill the Pain was great. Last October, we were up in Copenhagen, Denmark with Flemming Rasmussen, November, first week of November of last year. We're in Copenhagen, Denmark with Flemming Rasmussen, and, we're recording with this Metallica producer legend, and, we went in there, we were prepared to do Kill the Pain. Came out great. I recorded on my new drums that I had sent over, that I built. So it was great to get that in and hear the sounds, and it came out great.
And again, in addition to digital streaming platforms, it's released on a 7-inch vinyl and accompanied again by a lyric video.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's just a way to get to get some kind of visuals out there without having to come up with a whole, like, you know, we're dropping shit every month. So you can imagine, like, it's enough to be able to get all the songs done and ready in time to come out every month, let alone make a video for each song that actually requires filming things and doing all that kind of thing. So the lyric video definitely saved us some time. And it works, you know, it's just kind of based around the artwork and then the lyrics. And it's cool to see the lyrics as you listen to the song, especially for like the first time. You know, when I was listening to stuff growing up or whenever, you know, the first time I listen to stuff, I usually don't really get the lyrics right away because I'm more of a music guy. I listen to the music more than I do the vocals of the lyrics. So watching something like that for the first time is pretty cool because it just puts the lyrics right in front of your face, and then you just get the whole thing right there.
And in addition to the lyric video, we get another behind the song video that gives a peek into the studio. So another great song. We have a whole episode coming up on Kill the Pain in 2021. So in addition to this second single that dropped, Bass Magazine features a bass playthrough video by Jarvis of the last single from the previous month, Empire's Fall. So another single and a second one in 2020, and again, it sells out in hours.
We were pretty confident that the singles were going to sell out, and we only did limited runs. You know, we want things to be collectibles, and we want things to be worth it, you know? So it really worked out in our favor.
So 3 months into this pandemic, and Night Demon is just releasing a lot of content. If you're a Night Demon fan, they're very active. And that brings us to June of 2020, and yet another single, this one a Thin Lizzy-inspired rocker. It was recorded at Electrical Audio in Chicago with producer Steve Albini. Are You Out There? This song, Are You Out There, is a personal favorite of mine. Jarvis was nice enough on June 5th to appear as a guest on my old podcast, Talking Maiden, episode 133, where he premiered this new single, which I thought was pretty cool. So this single is again released on a 7-inch, accompanied by a lyric video.
Are You Out There? So the third single of 2020. I really love this song. You know, I really do. It's a bit of a departure for Night Demon, but writing from the perspective of Phil Lynott's friends and family was a really cool thing and really close and personal to us. But, you know, I was also going through my own addiction struggles, and a lot of it is personal to me. And it was good for me to get that out and to get that out there. I wasn't trying to send a message to anybody specifically about myself, but it was just kind of a therapeutic thing to do. And I'm fortunate enough that I have a vehicle in music and in with Night Demon where, you know, I'm the lyricist, so I'm able to do that. I'm able to get that stuff out there. No pun intended. But just another great track, and again, the third single that just dropped on everybody, I think is this is really when people started to catch on to what was happening.
I love the song, and a cool thing about the 7-inch is that it includes the B-side, which is a cover of Thin Lizzy's The Sun Goes Down. So these two tracks sort of make up a Thin Lizzy-themed kind of mini EP. And I love this track. It shows another side of the band, which is very cool.
I think the track came out great. It's exactly what it needs to be, and I the story behind Are You Out There is really cool. It's very Thin Lizzy inspired, and it definitely has its place in our catalog, and I'm really proud of it.
Are You Out There is a cool song, a little departure. We were a little I wouldn't say we were afraid of what the reaction was going to be from that coming out. I would say more curious to see what the reaction was going to be. I know we looked at it as like one of those songs that could be like almost like a radio song, you know, for whatever that's worth these days. I don't know what you have to do to get on the radio anymore these days, but.
So despite the death of live music this year, there's a few glimmers of live music that pop up. Armand's birthday, June 11th, the band gets together and does an outdoor backyard barbecue set for some close friends.
June 11th, 2020. I always know June 11th because that's Armand's birthday. We were scheduled to play in Puerto Rico that day. And obviously that didn't happen. But we ended up having a backyard barbecue at our friend Marty's up in Ojai, California. He threw a big party for Armand. And it was kind of like the first time that any of our friends were around each other since this pandemic. And, some people were wearing masks, some people weren't. I think a lot of people had kind of thought that it had died down, or, the cases were going down, or, a lot of people thought that this thing wasn't real or it was over exaggerated. I know for certain nobody that was at that party got sick. Nobody was sick. Nobody came with the virus and spread it, and nobody actually got it later. So thankfully, because you never want to be the guy that's like, you don't want to be the I told you so guy. You don't want to be, that would have been tragic if that did happen, but it didn't. And that didn't start a chain of events of like, okay, we're having parties every night. Not at all. It was for Armand's 40th birthday, and he had brought down all this equipment and all this gear, and just kind of to have like a free-for-all jam. We ended up, all of our friends just got up throughout the day, and we were just playing cover songs and just having a good time. And by the end of the night, I mean, it was only a matter of time before, everybody, rumors going around the place, hey, Night Demon's here, we want to hear Night Demon. And like, we would go up, and we went up and just fucked around, and we're playing some old tunes and some deep cuts, and people kept wanting to hear the new songs, which was crazy. We didn't really, I think we might've played one new one. I can't remember, but we probably should have done that. So that was really cool that we had friends there that like, they still listen to the band. They're keeping up with what we're doing these days, and that's really cool. But it was a good thing to shake the rust off. So I guess technically we did play 2 shows this year, but I wouldn't consider that a show or a gig by any means. We really only played 4 or 5 songs, and it was just an impromptu thing. We didn't really have any of our Night Demon gear up there. So it wasn't a proper Night Demon gig. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a great party, and everybody got along well, and it was a good time for his birthday.
So this is 3-4 months into this pandemic thing, right? And people aren't doing anything. Everything's locked down. Everything's shut down. A good friend of mine who has a house in Ojai, California, had been bugging me for months, saying, and he's from New Zealand, so he's got a great accent. Kept bugging me, mate, you're turning fucking 40 years old. What the fuck are you going to do? You can't just not do anything. I mean, it's crazy. So he would always comment, he'd end up calling me drunk or something, and say, I'll have a party for you. Don't worry about it. I'll have a party for you. I'll fucking buy all the booze, whatever. Just do it at my place. And, I'd always kind of put them off. Okay, yeah, we'll do it. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if anybody will come, if everybody's worried about, being around other people and this and that. But the more I thought about it, his house is pretty big. He's got a really big backyard. He's got an above-ground pool. And I decided to just say fuck it and just invite a small, close group of friends and just kind of put it out there like, hey, this is just a private thing. It's not a show. But I wanted to have equipment there. I wanted it to be, a musician's kind of party. Like, just have shit ready to go. Whoever wanted to come up can jam whenever they want. And, this guy who had Marty, whose house we had it at, he's a huge fan of everything that I've done musically. He's been to all our shows in Ventura and all that stuff. And so he's a huge music lover. We're both huge Thin Lizzy fans and all that. So yeah, man, I just set it up. And, it was like, I know all the guys were going to be there. So at some point, someone's going to bug us enough to make us just get up there and do it. And sure enough, we did. And I was, I was on a pretty good one. I think I had about 10 frozen margaritas by that point because we rented a margarita machine because, you got to have a nice 40th backyard birthday pool party. You can't have that without a margarita machine, right? Yeah, so we ended up making a few batches of that stuff, and everybody was definitely enjoying that. Everybody ended up staying there, camping out, swimming in the pool. It was one of the fucking best times of my life. And everybody that went there was so pumped because, everybody had been fucking stuck at home for like 3 months. So it was like a big release. And then also to be able to like see some people playing instruments live. Holy shit. It's like almost forgot about what that's about. I can't believe it's already been 6 months since that has happened, and nothing has happened like that since then. So looking forward to the minute we can do something again.
What is up, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners? This is your resident motor mouth, Jarvis Leatherby, telling you about something very, very special here. The Decibel Hall of Fame Anthology Volume 3. This is a book, guys. That's right. We all know Decibel Magazine as the #1 metal magazine in North America for many years running. But you know what? They also have a fucking killer book series, okay? I want to tell you about this. The Decibel Hall of Fame Anthology Volume 3. This limited edition hardcover includes 25 Hall of Fame stories from Decibel's revered monthly series of artist interviews on the making of their classic extreme music albums. Featured in this book are stories behind classic albums such as Stained Class by Judas Priest, Apocalyptic Raids from our good buddy Tom Warrior's Hellhammer, Pleasure to Kill from Teutonic German terror creator, Court in the Act from the legendary new wave of British heavy metal gods Satan, and of course, Abigail from the legendary King Diamond. And last but not least, Night Demon's personal favorite, Heartwork from the only other band from Liverpool, Carcass. So guys, please head on over right now to store.decibelmagazine.com and grab a copy to read the definite stories of heavy metal's definitive albums. Put in the promo code Night Demon upon checkout to receive 10% off. That's Night Demon, one word, all capital letters. Get your 10%, store.decibelmagazine.com. While you're there, guys, go ahead and grab a subscription of the Mag 2. They've got a great vinyl flexi series. Do yourselves a favor here. Get on the level. Store.decibelmagazine.com. Promo code Night Demon. See ya.
So that brings us to July of 2020. And another month, another single. This one, a heavy thrash-inspired track, Visteria.
War in disguise. Hysteria.
So July 2020, we're deep into the pandemic, and I think most people were feeling the stress and the strain of the lockdowns. And this song really came out and addressed those frustrations that everyone had.
So in July, Hysteria drops. Again, another kind of like, well, let's see how this goes over. Because, we had kind of touched on some ideas about this whole virus thing and pandemic, and about, the ideas that it's kind of a thing, a way for governments to, close grip and get more control over their people. I'm not saying that the virus isn't real, but, like a certain famous politician said, you can't let a good crisis go to waste. So they definitely grabbed onto this crisis. And I think that's kind of the idea of what the Hysteria lyric is about, So it came out, and I think 90% of the reactions were good. There was a couple of people that were like, you're just furthering conspiracy theories and all this kind of crap. And, fine, we got to have that, I guess, right? If somebody's not, questioning what you're doing, then you're not doing anything worth anything, right? It's like you got to piss some people off, or else you're not doing enough. That's what I think.
And along with the single, another lyric video was released. This one a little different from the previous ones in that it features the band playing the song.
We did do a live action video for Hysteria, but we combined it and made it a lyric video. So it's kind of cool. I'm not going to say it's a new concept. I mean, there's something a little bit different about it that not a lot of people do. I remember the Van Halen Right Now video where they had words on the screen. Right now, this is happening. Right now, this is happening. But the band wasn't really featured in it much, and the lyrics were not on the screen. So I took a little bit of inspiration for that and just combined it where it's a very aggressive song about the media and the pandemic. That's what the song is about. And the media, poisoning the minds of the public, keeping the public afraid. It's not about over-exaggeration. It's about control. And to be playing an aggressive song like that and playing it live and then have the words come up on the screen as I'm singing the words, I thought that was a really, really powerful video. I'm still really, really stoked on that. One of my favorite ones that we've done.
And July 23rd was Night Demon Fan Appreciation Day.
July 23rd, 2020, Night Demon Fan Appreciation Day. So, I don't really know what came about this. I think I just wanted to send a message that day just thanking the fans. I mean, we had such a successful campaign releasing these singles, and everybody stuck by us. And I just kind of wanted to appreciate the fans that day. So I just kind of ran it by everybody, and that's what it is. I think moving forward, we would like to actually do something for the fans. And after this pandemic's over, I think we can get a lot more creative with this stuff. So July 23rd, mark your calendars. That is officially Night Demon Fan Appreciation Day. And we're hoping in 2021 we can bring it home for you guys.
Also in July, the podcast you are listening to now, the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, launches.
The Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. You're listening to it right now. Man, what an honor. I mean, really, this has been something that's so great for the band. I mean, you talk about the luck of the draw of us dropping these singles during the pandemic when all of our touring has been taken away. I mean, that really kept us active, and it kept us in the eyes of all of you fans and friends. I mean, that was the thing. I was so proud to be able to deliver content and music to all of you during these times when we couldn't go hang out with each other or you couldn't come see the band live. Like I mentioned before, that was a perfect storm. So to carry that on, I'd been a fan of the Talking Maiden podcast for years, basically since they started. And I did an interview for Are You Out There with the podcast. And after the interview, I was talking to Nesbitt and Josh. And, you know, they were telling me that the podcast was ending. And I was just so depressed about it because as some of you loyal listeners to this podcast can probably relate, you know, every Friday morning I would wake up and put on the Talking Maiden podcast. And it was like I was listening to like my best friends. It was like I was listening. It was such a routine thing. And I got to listen to these two guys talk about Iron Maiden. And it was just so cool. I got hooked on it, and it just became a really familiar thing for me. And I was really just fearful that when that ends, that a big chunk of my life was going to be taken away. A lot of the enjoyment in dark times like these. So I actually mentioned to Nesbitt, I had an idea, like I wanted to do a podcast, and it was going to be called The Heavy Metal Show. And what I wanted to do is just interview other heavy metal artists. And, you know, I know enough of them, and the ones I don't, you know, I know they're PR people, and I'm sure I could reach them. And basically I wanted Nesbitt to be the producer of the show. I wanted him to put everything together, and, you know, we would kind of be partners in that. And I would just conduct the interviews. And it wasn't going to be the Jarvis Leatherby podcast. It was just the Heavy Metal Show. And I kind of wanted to talk about heavy metal with heavy metal artists and have the fans just, you know, I wanted to come up with some interesting questions. And from artist to artist, I feel like I could do that like a non-traditional interviewer asking all of the same old tired questions over and over again. So, you know, he was really receptive to that. But almost immediately he said, you know, I was thinking about doing a Night Demon podcast. And I was like, what? How can you talk about the same band week after week? And he's like, well, I did it with Iron Maiden. But I was like, yeah, but that's Iron Maiden. I mean, they have 40 years of history. And he said, well, I mean, here's my idea. And I think that you guys are really coming up and you're on to something. And there's a lot more interesting things about the band than you probably realize from the inside looking out. And, you know, he was right. And I talked to the guys about it, and we all got together, the four of us, Nesbitt included, and just kind of hammered out a plan and just said, okay, if we're going to do this, we have to commit to this, and we're going to do it. We're not going to have dead air one week, or we're just going to stop doing this. We need to make this a scalable thing. And that's when we came up with the subscriber network and built our own network. So we weren't relying on Patreon or YouTube or any of these other platforms that constantly change their policies or can take things away, or, you know, they might be gone tomorrow. We don't know. So we took a lot of time building our own infrastructure and launched this thing, and it's been awesome ever since. And we're now over 20 weeks into it, and we've got a full plan for 2021. And it's just really exciting stuff. And I just want to thank all of you guys for your support as loyal listeners and being so loyal to us as a band. And you just got to know that we're very loyal to you as fans and friends. And we're always just trying to deliver this content at the highest level. So thank you so much for joining us. And as more people join in our crusade together, we're only going to become stronger. So thank you guys so much for that.
And we also debuted the podcast at the end of that month. And I got to give it up to you, Nesbitt, for fucking putting together something that's interesting. And I mean, I never would have thought I would ever be a part of something like this, or that anybody would want to, you know, have a fucking show, a weekly show that is solely based on a band that I'm in. Holy crap, you know, we've only been around for, I mean, I've only been in the band for like 4 years now, and but it's kind of crazy because it makes you really realize how much fucking cool shit we get to do and that we have done in this, you know, small period of time. You know, a lot of bands that, you know, have podcasts or whatever now, it's like doing the Maiden thing. I mean, yeah, Maiden's been around for fucking 40 years or whatever, you know? And sure, there's plenty of stuff to go about there. But obviously the cool thing with what we're doing here is that, you know, he's in direct contact with us. So you're getting the stories direct from the source. And I think that's something that the fans are really, really stoked about. I'm stoked about. I mean, I listen to these things every week because it's cool. Like because I master everything, you know, I go in and clean up all the audio and make sure everything sounds really good. So in doing that, I basically have to listen to each episode through, and you know, it's entertaining, man. I mean, we don't, you know, when we do our own commentary, you know, each one of us records our own commentary and stuff separately. You know, Nesbitt, he will give us questions, kind of basic questions about, you know, the topic of the podcast, and then each one of us will go off and record our own clips about, you know, answers to the questions and stuff like that, and then he puts it all together. So it's really cool to hear that, you know, when it gets put together, and hearing what the other guys have to say for the first time. You know, it's pretty fun. Like I get enjoyment out of that. I don't think I'd enjoy it as much if, like, you know, we'd all did it together and something like that, you know. So it's cool. I'm really happy with how it's going. Nesbitt, you rock. You're fucking doing a killer job making us look or sound really good and exciting and interesting. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, it's great to be doing this podcast with Nesbitt and the guys. It's cool because we don't really talk to each other about what we're going to be talking about in the podcast. And it's cool to listen to them and hear the similarities of how we tell stories, and then certain things that Jarvis and Armand will remember that I won't, and vice versa. So it's really cool to get our story out there, and it's great for the fans to be able to soak in the knowledge. And I'm sure there's a lot of questions that are answered that they've had that they've never asked us, or, you know, it's just a really cool way to stay relevant in this time. And the subscription thing is great. All the bonus content that we've saved up over the years, and, you know, we've been really keeping all this stuff archived for a reason, and it's the perfect time to unleash it all and put it all out there. So, you know, it's a great time to start this podcast, and I'm really happy with the way it's turning out, and Nesbitt's hard work, and, you know, Kid Ekman helping out as well, and Taylor. There's so many people that are involved to make this thing work, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
So nice words from the guys. I'll just tell you what I tell them. I wouldn't be doing this if your band sucked. It's been a blast for me to hear all this behind-the-scenes info on all these songs and albums and tours. It's a big time commitment every week, but it doesn't seem like work. It's really fun. It's a fun project to be working on, and it's not just me. There's actually a lot of people involved from the Night Demon camp, so it's sort of a team effort, and it's been a blast for the last 5 or 6 months, I gotta say. So, also podcast related, the Aftershocks podcast in July featured Jarvis Leatherby as a guest, and also the Juice Pro Wrestling podcast featured Dusty Squires from Night Demon, episode 115. And that was a really entertaining podcast. If you like wrestling, especially classic wrestling, check it out.
Yeah, I did this episode 115 on the Juice Pro Wrestling podcast, and it's kind of like a horror movie / pro wrestling podcast, and metal goes along with it as well, because why not? It goes hand in hand. I'm not a huge horror movie buff, but I do know quite a bit about professional wrestling. I grew up on it. And for me, it was, you know, heavy metal, pro wrestling, pro football. That's me in a nutshell, and still is to this day. I'm a huge Ultimate Warrior fan. I freaking love his intensity and everything he brought to the table. So it was great to go on that podcast and shoot the shit. It worked out really well. It was fun. I was in my element, and those guys were really, really great and easy to talk with. It was a really, really cool experience. I loved it. So if you ever get a chance to check it out, it's the Monomania, episode 115, Juice Pro Wrestling.
And that brings us to August of 2020, and the final song that dropped in 2020 as a single from Night Demon is a live cover of In Trance, live with Uli Roth of the Scorpions.
I wake up
yeah, another fucking milestone. God damn it. Sharing the stage with Mr. Uli John Roth was a really, really, really cool experience. Something I will never forget about. I can cross that off my bucket list. I mean, I don't know. To be honest with you, joining this band made me more of a fan of the Scorpions than I ever was before, because I just didn't know much about them because of I just skipped them over when I was younger because all I had heard was the radio stuff, and I was just kind of like, not really my cup of tea. So thanks to Jarvis to turn me on to the Scorpions and stuff like that. Became more of a fan. But anyway, there's a whole episode about that song you can get into.
So another single, another 7-inch with really cool cover art. A live video was released of that song from the show, which is a great watch. August 5th, Brave Words lists Night Demon as one of the 20 essential new wave of traditional heavy metal bands. August 5th to the 7th, the band records the remainder of the new album, Basic Drum and Bass Tracks. So I've heard these tracks, and I'll let you know that this new album is going to blow your minds.
So yeah, we basically went into the studio here, and part of the stuff that we recorded with Josh back in April, we just decided to scrap it. Those songs were kind of fresh when we recorded with him, and I think because we were home for all that time, we kept working on stuff, in the rehearsal room. We'd get in there and we'd play these songs every couple of days or whatever, and it, like you're supposed to do. Sometimes things come together really quick, like we had to just get it done because we were going to be going on this tour. So we kind of rushed it, and it wasn't ready. They weren't ready. It wasn't the right time. We had recorded one of the songs to a click track, which we normally don't do, but we just kind of felt like it needed it because it's a bit of a slower thing. But then it turned out, it just didn't feel right, and then Josh, the whole pandemic thing hit, and he just didn't feel comfortable with coming back up here and finishing things with us. So we just kind of let it be. And then we decided to just come in and just record it ourselves, or for me to be the engineer on it. And it fucking came out fucking awesome. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And I'm glad that we took the time and went back into the room and jammed them out, every couple of days for those 4 months, before we came back in to record them. It really made a difference. So looking forward to getting those out to you guys.
August 27th, in honor of National Dog Day. So Jarvis Leatherby was asked to contribute vocals to this track of, it's a bunch of metal people singing 99 Bottles of Beer on the Wall. Jarvis is featured at number 61. Here you can hear his contribution.
So on August 27th, in honor of National Dog Day, I was asked to contribute vocals to 99 Bottles of Beer on the Wall. So everybody knows this song. You count down from 99. It's pretty boring, but I was number 61 on this list. And I think Chuck Billy from Testament, I was sandwiched between him and maybe Phil Anselmo. It was really cool just to be asked to do that. Robin Mason, who's the manager for Exodus and Death Angel, actually asked me to do that. And I thought that was really cool. And I was very honored to be a part of that list of great metal musicians. And it was just a cool thing. And it was going to a dog charity to help old orphan dogs and stuff that nobody wanted. So that was pretty cool. And I mean, it just took me, 6 seconds to record that bit. But it was cool. Like, basically, they had a band set up 8 different versions of, in a metal way, of the backing music, and I got to choose one. It's the crazy thing, I think I was one of the only people that actually sang or had some kind of singing tone to my voice, because I'm not really a screamer or a growler. Everything else on there was pretty extreme. But it was just another cool thing to do. And in this pandemic, it just seems like I've been doing more interviews than ever. I've been doing more things like this than ever. People just, I don't know if it's boredom or they just have the time now because life around them is slowed down. So they're becoming more active in that stuff and spreading content. And I think that's really cool. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there, so it's hard to cut through. But, look, here we are with a podcast now. So there you go.
So this 99 bottles of beer thing, it's on YouTube. It's kind of fun. It's like 23 minutes plus, but it's for a good cause. So check it out. And rounding out August, Jarvis was featured in 10 metal names to look for in the future. That was on August 29th. So September of 2020, Jarvis is featured on Nardcore for Life, which is a compilation. He does vocals for He Fails Me on the Aggression cover track Dear John Letter. What makes this even more Night Demon related is a lot of this compilation was recorded by Armand.
Oh, I don't know, 20 out of the 40 bands that are on that compilation. A friend of mine came to me with the idea of setting up he kind of wanted to do this thing where every band had one song, but everybody recorded, it was like done on a weekend, kind of like a festival. Like I have everything set up here. Everybody comes in, you get an hour and a half. You record the song live, spend some time doing a couple of overdubs, some vocal overdubs if you want, and then boom, you're out and the next band comes in. So I did that over a weekend last year. And that's when this thing dropped in September. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I ended up doing like 12 bands one day, 8 bands a second day, and then a second round later in that year for bands that ended up doing a vinyl release and then a digital version. The digital version had all the bands plus another 20 or something like that. So you could only fit so many on the vinyl release, So that was pretty fun.
And to cap off September, on September 25th, Jarvis was interviewed in Spin magazine about Blizzard of Oz. It's the 40th anniversary. And that brings us to October of 2020. So October 2020, Night Demon is involved in another virtual metal event, Slade at Home.
So in October of this year, Frank, who runs Metal Injection, one of the greatest metal news sites around, he's during the pandemic, he was doing this thing once a month called Slade at Home. And basically it involved live stream full songs from bands and then collaborations. And he actually asked me to be a part of this October edition. Frankie Benali from Quiet Riot had just passed away from cancer. And Frank's father, Frank from Metal Injection, sadly, his father had also recently just passed away from cancer, maybe a couple weeks before that. And so he wanted to do Come On Feel the Noise. And he asked me to sing on it. And it featured the bass player who used to be in Havoc. Frank was playing drums. And then Mrs. Smith, who's amazing. It's this guy in drag who is a total shredder, but he's like this old cat lady. He actually did a wah-off with Kirk Hammett, and he beat him. So that was pretty cool. But his profile's been rising a lot. So Frank asked me to do it, and it's basically like, I need the track like tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, shit, And I was just about to go on a little bit of a vacation, and I had a lot of things going on. But, I just said this is for a good cause, and it's always cool to be asked to do things. So I asked them to tune down to D standard because, without even listening to the track, I'm very familiar with the song. It's one of the first songs I ever learned on my guitar. My first guitar teacher. Actually, it's the first proper guitar solo I ever learned. I used to go to my aunt's house in New Jersey every summer and stay there. And I had this guitar teacher there, this Native American guy named Dodge. He was really cool. But he taught me how to play that guitar solo when I was young. And so I've always had a connection to that song. But I was like, wow, I just think of Kevin Dubrow, and I'm like, wow, I can't. Like, he's got a pretty high range. So without even listening to the track, I'm like, hey, look, if you can record this thing in D standard, make it a little heavier, I'll lay it down right now. So they laid down the basic tracks, and then I sang the lead vocal here in my studio, and I kind of asked Frank. I said, "Look, there's a lot of backing vocals on the track, and what's going to happen? Are you guys going to do that?" And he wasn't really sure about that. I don't think he had thought that through quite yet because he was putting this whole thing together and having to deal with every aspect of that, also while having his normal job of running this media site. So I just said, look, let's make this a Night Demon project. I really want to get the other guys involved. I don't want it to be just Jarvis from Night Demon. So it was great. Dusty and Armand came in, and we did the backing vocals, and we made a little video for it. And it was cool because I would sing the lead vocals, and Armand would come in on the verse harmonies. And then Armand and Dusty would come in together, and we would sing the choruses together. And it came out really good, and it actually sounds really awesome. So really fucking cool. Definitely check that out.
So you think I got an evil mind? I tell you, honey, I don't know why. I don't know why. So you think my singing's out of time? It makes me money, and I don't know why. I don't know why anymore. Oh no. So come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your boys. We get wild, wild, wild. Wild, wild, wild. Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your boys.
So this was another live virtual, I'm using air quotes, metal event. A lot of people have been asking Night Demon, like, why no Night Demon virtual show or online concert? And here's what Jarvis has to say about that.
Just a side note on that. My general opinion these days of live streams and web performances, I get why people are doing them because you can't see the band in person. The reason why Night Demon really hasn't done anything like that is because we feel it's just such a bad representation of what we do. We are a extremely energetic live band, and we just don't think that that's going to come across on camera. I think that's maybe a reason why we didn't do a live video or DVD for Live Darkness. It just, when you listen to it, you feel like you're there, and it leaves so much more to the imagination. And if you've really seen the band, then you kind of know what that's like being there. And so for this, it was something cool. We were fine to be a part of it because it's like everybody's in a different area, in a different location that's playing on this. So that was a very cool concept. But for Night Demon to be in a room playing and a live stream, I don't think it's for us.
So don't cross your fingers for Night Demon Virtual Darkness. So the end of October, coming up on Halloween, we did the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast Halloween special, which was really fun to do. The bonus content for that one was insane, the amount of stuff they dragged out of the archives. And on that episode of the podcast, Night Demon announced Heavy Hamburg Halloween for 2021.
Announcing the Heavy Hamburg Halloween for 2021 was pretty cool. I think a bunch of people bought tickets already for that. It's just something to look forward to. It's crazy to think that one of the only gigs we have on the books right now is a year away, even though we have, Bang Your Head is still booked for July 2021, and also the Candelabrum festival in Mexico in September. Now, if those are going to happen or not, I mean, only time will tell. It's too early to tell, I guess. But, we're booking them, and we're planning on going. So if things work out, we'll be there. If not, we'll just have to fucking move it back again. I don't know what to say about it besides that.
So Heavy Hamburg Halloween 3. Details on nightdemon.net. Tickets are for sale now. Into November of 2020, the Get Heavy Pod Volume 33 featuring Night Demon's Armand.
November, Get Heavy podcast, run by a couple of fucking rad dudes from Ventura here, good friends of mine. John Scheimer, he wasn't on the episode that I did, but my good friend Craig Kasamas, he's been in a bunch of great bands that have been around Ventura, and I've always recorded his bands. The most latest band that he's in currently is called Tung, T-U-N-G. I recommend checking them out. It's really heavy shit. I think it's actually Swedish. That word is Swedish for metal. Swedish for heavy. So if that doesn't tell you what they sound like, I don't know what will. But yeah, no, it was cool being on that. It was like a live, it's basically just, doing a Zoom call thing and, just asking me stuff about the studio and the band. There's a couple of good stories in there about touring. If you want to check it out, look it up. It's called the Get Heavy Podcast, Volume 33. I'm in there.
And finally, coming to December of 2020, big news, Dusty's brand new signature drumsticks go on the market from London Drumstick Company.
So recently I just got my own signature drumsticks, and we just put the ad out that I did. I'm really, really happy with the drumsticks. I can't thank them enough for really making what I need. The sticks have a Night Demon logo on them. It has my name on them. It has the sigil on them. And then I ordered 100 pairs of sticks just to have them on hand, because I always need drumsticks. Can never have enough. People are always asking me for sticks, and now they actually get a chance to order my sticks direct from London Drumstick's website. So it's really cool, and it's something that I didn't think was going to happen anytime soon. But here we are, and my dream has come true. So I make my own drums. I got my own drumstick. I get a deal on drum heads. The only thing I don't have are cymbals. I just need cymbals because I break them.
So you can check those out at londondrumsticks.co.uk. Just go to the shop under Artist Series. They're really cool looking with Dusty's signature on there, the sigil, the Night Demon logo. Night Demon fans listening to the podcast, you can actually get 15% off. And here's the details.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
So also in December was the launch of what I think is a really killer idea, Iron Grip Records.
On December 4th of this year, I launched a record label called Iron Grip Records. I've had a management company for 5 years called Iron Grip Management. I manage Visigoth, Satan, Sirathungal, Midnight, and of course Night Demon. The idea for the label was just to reissue stuff on cassette. I'm a huge fan of cassettes, and a lot of these titles are masters that are owned by some of the bands that I manage. So I wanted to kick off with that because everybody's hurting from the pandemic financially. 90% of all of our income has been taken away by not being able to go and tour. So record royalties are pretty low and they're not what they used to be. So I had an opportunity here to be able to release physical and digital music from the bands that I manage with some of the back catalog stuff that had never been on cassette. And the fans just ate it up right away. So it was good. I can cut them in on a much higher royalty than anything that they would get from a traditional record deal. And I let the fans know about that, and they came up to bat and they supported in a big way. So I've got a lot of future plans with the label and just a lot of really, I'm just like pinching myself all the time because I'm in the process of releasing so many classic albums that influence me. And it's just so nice to be able to license these titles and work directly with the bands and work directly with these legendary labels. And so it's just it's a passion project for me, but you know, I got to keep the business rolling too. So it's something that's going to benefit the artists as well. So I'm really stoked on that. And I think the coolest thing was, you know, it's mainly like I'm trying to bring the cassette culture back and bring the attention span back. You know, a cassette's a great thing. It's a mechanical object. You know, I mean, vinyl is a physical object. CD is too, but it still reads digitally. But a cassette, I mean, you have these gears and these wheels just turning inside of this thing, and then you need a machine that's going to do that. So I hooked up with a company in China that had developed a Bluetooth-enabled Walkman, and it's kind of right off the ground floor. There's really not a lot of that out there, and the stuff that is, I mean, the price point's really high, or they're just really cheap, and they really don't work well. So I was able to work with them and work out a deal and import a lot of those, and I just branded it the Iron Grip Player. And it's good to work with an overseas company and be able to make something like that happen, and to just have an idea and a vision for something and seamlessly just put it into play. And people have been picking them up, and the fans have been giving really good feedback on them. So if you're always wondering, well, where the hell am I how do I even play a cassette these days? You know, there's many cassette players that you can buy all over the place, but we have our own player to play this great heavy metal. You can check that out at irongripheavymetal.com or at theheavymetalstore.com. There's just a quick plug. Sorry, I had to.
Again, here we are, not stopping. You know, things are happening. Podcast is rocking every week. Dusty's got his stick. Jarvis launches a fucking record label and puts out some cool shit from our good buddies Sirathungal and Visigoth. Satan. Got to check that shit out.
So that's it for 2020. In a year when everyone seemed to hit the pause button, Night Demon just kept rolling on.
Night Demon, we don't sit back and take a back seat to anything, especially a pandemic. And when we are, presented with a setback, we're going to make the best of it. And there's never downtime with the band. We never have any time to just sit back and put our feet on the table and arms behind our head. We're constantly thinking of ways to stay relevant, to stay fresh, especially now. I think it was either going to be, some bands are going to be completely derailed by it and like, oh my God, woe is me, and I can't believe this, and oh, what are we going to do? And other bands took it into their own hands and said, okay, this is a great opportunity for us to really have the ball in our court and to make the best of this situation, and we're not going to play victim to it. So, given the cards that we were dealt, we made the best of it, and we're continuing to make the best of it.
So, in summary, 2020, man, what the fuck? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if my opinion really matters on it. For me, I think it's gone by quick. It's strange to be here at the end of the year and think about all of the things that we would have done by now had this whole thing not been derailed. However, I still think we've accomplished a whole lot. It just looks a lot different than we expected. And it's a time in our lives that we're always going to remember. I'm so grateful that we started this band in 2011 and we put the time in and we put all the road work in, because starting this band today would be a lot more difficult. Gene Simmons has always said, like, oh, starting a band in the modern era, it's impossible and you're screwed and there's no way that's going to happen. Well, I mean, if he said that today, I would kind of almost believe it. I feel bad for bands that are getting off the ground floor, but, art and music will never die. And if a band is good enough, they will rise to the top easily. People will discover that. But look, it's the one thing about time, it's just an unrenewable resource, and it will pass you by if you don't use it wisely. And I think we've done a really good job at it. It's been a great reset for us, and we've been able to reassess a lot of things in the band's career. And I actually feel that we have a lot more longevity now, because we had a 7-year plan when we first started kicking off, and we're coming up on that in 2021. And we were basically going to disband. I mean, that's all we thought we were going to have in the tank. And now we're looking at things in a totally different light. And we've got a lot of great plans for the future. And this podcast has really kept us going. And I'm proud to say that really, for only playing one proper gig in 2020, we released 5 singles on vinyl. And we've had over 20 consecutive weeks with this podcast. So I would say it's been a victory for us. We've been able to make the best of everything, and we've been able to bounce back seamlessly and keep ourselves going, and hopefully keep all of you out there interested in what we're doing.
Yeah, man, the only thing that derailed us was not being able to go out and play. But like I said, I think it's going to really make things that much better when we do get back into it, because it's going to be a well-needed break. We can focus on some other things, and, we're just building this whole empire again, It's like, I don't know if we'd be able to pull off all this podcast shit. I don't know if we'd be able to pull off, writing, I don't know, man. I mean, just writing for this next record would have been pushed back a lot longer, because we would have been on the road again over the summer. We're not a band that just gets in and writes songs every day. It takes us a while, because we really focus on things and really dissect things and pull them apart and put them back together, 10 times before we decide that that's the way it's going to be and we're ready to go. So we've already started working on some new stuff for another album, since we don't know if we're going to be able to get back on the road until the summer. So at this point, it's like, well, the best thing we can do is just get in and keep writing, so that by the time we get back on the road, we could possibly have another album ready, so it doesn't take 3 years to release another album. Again, just want to say thanks to all the listeners and everybody that supported the page and the subscribers. You know, we try to give you guys really cool shit every week. Hope you all appreciate it. Nesbitt, you're fucking, again, doing a killer job. We couldn't do this without you. Actually, we wouldn't have done it without you because it was your idea. Nice. Well, I hope everybody has a great new year. And here's to getting back to where we need to be, man. Let's get back out on the stages out there next year, 2021. Let's do this. Fuck 2020. Even though we made the best out of it, you know? Take your lemons and make lemonade, baby. All right. Check you guys later. Peace.
So this year, 2020, with all the bullshit that came along with it, didn't really put a stop to Night Demon at all. The touring was put on hold, but they used the extra time to keep relevant and continue to push new band-related projects, especially the creation of new music. So to wrap up this year with some great news, I am announcing here that there is a new Night Demon full-length album coming out in 2021. I know there's been a lot of people asking, a lot of buzz online about a new album. Well, here's the official announcement from the band, from Night Demon. The album is titled Year of the Demon, and it's scheduled to come out September 2021. So there you have it, new Night Demon full-length album. More details coming in future episodes, so stay tuned, keep listening, subscribe. It's been 23 episodes starting back in July of 2020, and it flew. Almost half a year into doing this podcast, I feel like we barely scratched the surface. It's been really fun. And I'm personally looking forward to the episodes we have lined up for the new year with a new album and hopefully live shows starting up again. 2021 is truly going to be the year of the demon. This is Nesbitt signing off and saying Happy New Year to our listeners all over the world, wherever you might be.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Unbearable suspense that keeps you on the edge of an abyss of terror.
Take a cult film odyssey into Cinemadness with Cinematic Void. Based in Los Angeles, Cinematic Void is a film series that specializes in horror and exploitation films. Currently, we are hosting Cinematic Void Up All Night in the Cinemadness movie, a monthly virtual screening series, as well as the Cinematic Void podcast, where we dive deeper into the world of cult cinema. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you like what we do, you can support Cinematic Void by joining our Patreon. Until next time, see you in the void.